Hello everyone and welcome back to part 4. Are we on part 4? I think we're on part 4. So in the last video, we were able to create our invoice table and we were able to pass in our data and we were able to create new items, new raw items into our invoice table. So in this video, what I want us to do is I want to add an edit button and a delete button in case you just want to edit or delete one of the items that you added in. And then if we have time, then I'm also going to check out how we can display the total amount of items from the rows that we have in our table. And then if I do remember to fix it, then what I want to do is notice how we can add empty items. I don't want to be able to do that, so we should be able to remove those as well. So let's get started. Okay, so I just want to mention this, that if you want access to the project, then you can check out the link in the description to the GitHub, or you can head over into my profile, and the repository is called invoicer_v2. And this is the repository that we are working with, and I think I deployed this into a website. So let me just try and remember the name. It should be invoicerv2.netlify.app. Yep, this is the website. So this is where our application, our finished application, is going to live. Okay, so I'm going to jump back into VS Code, and what I want to do now is inside my table form component. Right inside table form, this is the invoice table for our preview invoice. What I want to do is right around, this is my submit button. Let me just place columns because this is becoming a bit too crowded. So this is submit form function. This is calculate amount function, and I'm starting to doubt whether we need this, but I don't want to remove it just yet. So let's say calculate items amount function, and then below this I just want to add my edit. Just want to add my edit button, and then I want to add my delete button. More like delete function. Okay, let me just rename this delete function and edit function. Okay, so for my edit function, actually not, let me start with the delete one because it's easier. So for the delete, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function called delete row. So let's say const delete row, because we're going to be deleting the row, and we're going to be accessing the ID, and the ID is coming from, where is it? The ID is this right here. Okay, this is the row ID, and that's by the way, let me just explain it. This is why we really needed to have UUID installed, because as you can see, every time that we submit the form, right, we are creating a new object, and this object has a key of ID with the value of UUID before, and a key of description with the value of description, quantity, price, and amount. So UUID, what it does is that it generates unique IDs for every new element that is created, so that you don't accidentally delete two items because they have the same unique ID. Because in our delete function, if it detects that two elements have the same ID, then it's going to delete both elements, and we don't want that to happen, right? So right inside here, I'm just going to say set list, because list is what is populated with our row items, right? So I'm going to set list into list.filter, because list is our state value, and then I'm going to say that for every row object that we get back, right? So we are getting back an object that we are calling row. So I'm going to say return the row.id, which is not equal to the ID. So basically what is happening here is that we are going to be returning every other row that is not equal to the ID of the row that we click on. Okay, so that's what this function is doing. And you know what, because this is one line, I can actually just remove it from here, and then I can remove this, and then I can just paste it here. It's one line, so it works the same way. So before we save this, let's pass this function inside our edit button, and for our delete button. So our delete button is going to live right here. So I'm going to create a new TD. So table details, I'm going to have a button that says delete, like so, and then the on click for this. So on click function, I'm going to pass in my inline function, and then I'm going to say delete row by the ID. Okay, so that we're going to have this. So let me save this, and then let's test it out. So we should have delete, come on, add item, doesn't add it. Oops, it added it. Okay, so let's add in a few items. So item 1, okay, let's say quantity 45, price 450, add item. Let's say item 2, quantity 100, price, there we go. And then you can say delete, there we go, and we have one less item, and we can delete this one as well. Now once we have that, notice how the delete row doesn't appear. That's okay. I don't really mind that kind of functionality because you don't really want it to appear by default, right? So 4500, once we add an item, then the delete button shows. So I don't really mind that, because in order to do this, then I would need to add another table details here, another column here that says delete, which I really don't want to do right here. I don't want to do that. Okay, but you can do that if you want. So we have this. Now what I want to do is, I don't want this to be a text, so I actually want to go into React icons and check out the delete icon that I can use. I think I installed React icons when we were beginning. If I didn't, then we're just going to install it right now. Let me use this one, AI outline delete. Let's go into package JSON. Let's just confirm we have React icons installed right here. That's okay. So let's go to the top, and then let's say import this from React icons /AI, like so. And then for our delete text here, let's just say AI, wait a minute, these are components, so AI outline delete. Okay, there it is. There we go. So save this, and we should see this icon change. Come on, reload. There we go. So we have our delete icon right there. Fantastic. Now let's just style it out. So let's give this a class name of text red -500 and font bold. And then let's say text -4XL. How big is that? Too big. Let's say text -XL. There we go. So this is our delete icon. And then let's go ahead and now let's work on our edit button. Okay, so for our edit button, we're going to add one more state value, and I'm not going to add it in app.js because we're only using it in table form, so I can just use it inside here, but we're going to need to import use state at the top. So use state, and then right here I'm going to say const is editing. So my state value is called is editing, and set is editing. This is equal to use state, and by default it's going to be false because we're not going to be editing any item by default. And then what I want to do is right here for my edit function, I'm going to create a function called edit row. Okay, so I'm going to say const edit row, and we're going to pass in our ID once again because we want to edit the row that we click on. Come on, I can't write and type. And then we're going to say const editing row equals to list.find. So we are finding the row that we click on. Okay, so for the row we want to say return the row ID, which is equal to the ID. Okay, so that's basically what this is doing. It's finding the row that we click on, and then it's setting the row ID into that ID, and this is what we're going to be passing back into our items at the top, back into our inputs, and I'm going to show you that. So let's say set is editing to true, right, because it's false by default. And then we want to, once we set this to true, then we want to say set description to editing row. So editing row dot description. So what this is going to do is that it's going to set the description. Remember, our description is, let me show you, this is our description. So it's going to set the value of the description here into the value of the description of the row that we click on, right? And then once we do this, then we need to do this for the quantity and the price as well. So I'm going to say set quantity into editing row dot quantity, and then set price into editing row dot price. Okay, and this is our edit function, but it's incomplete because I want to show you, I'm going to show you why it's incomplete and how to fix it. So let's pass in our edit button, and actually, you know what, let me just search for the edit icon here as well so that we can do it. And I'm going to use this one, AI outline edit. Let's import it at the top right here, and then on the bottom we're going to add another column here that says, that has a button. The button is going to show this icon like so. It's a React component, and then I'm going to say on click. So when you click on this button, then we want to pass in our inline function, and I want to say edit row, and we're going to pass in the ID. Okay, and then just copy this class name. Actually, not copy because they're different. So let's give this a class name of text green dash 500 and font bold. Actually, by the way, does font bold work on these icons? Text XL, and let's save this and let's see what we have. And we should have this. Now if I click on this, then the item then the value of the description here should say item, the value of quantity should say 45, and price should say 4500. But notice that this is still going to remain here, right? So let's try it. There we go. Look at that. We have this, and everything is populated correctly, including the amount, and then we can add the item again. But now this is not technically what I want to happen, right? Because when I click on this to edit it, then I want to remove it from here, because I don't want to be able to add it again with the same mistake, right? So in order to do that, then we're just going to do the very same thing that we did on our delete row function, which is basically just copy this here and then paste it below this, right? Did I do that correctly? Did I do that correctly? What's the problem? Set list into list of filter row. Come on. What did I do? Let's just type it out. So let's set list into list dot filter, and then for every row, let's say row dot id not equal to the id. Oh, I was missing one bracket, I think. Yeah, I was missing one bracket. Okay, so once we have this, then let's test it out, so that when I click on this, then it should remove this item from our table. So let's see, and that is what we want to happen, right? And then now we can add it again, and so on and so forth, and we can delete our items. Now something else that I do want to do is that when I click on this edit button, I want this button to say editing item or editing row item, something like that. So let's go ahead into our text, our button, sorry, which is this button right here. So add table item. So instead of saying this, we're going to add a condition, right? And we're going to say when is editing is true, is editing is true, and just type it. So when is editing is true, then I want the button text to say editing row item, and then when it is not true, then I want to say add table item. Okay, so let's save this. But then I've just realized that this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a problem, and notice that you can already tell that it's a problem because we are not editing anything inside here yet. It says editing row item, right? So let's refresh this. Let's refresh this and let's test it out. So let's say item 1, quantity 45, price 450. There we go. So it says add table item, and when I click on the edit button, then it says editing row item. Now when I submit this again, then I want it to say add a table item, but it doesn't do that. So let's fix that. Let's fix that by going into our form submit function, which is this right here, our handy submit. And then right below this, I'm going to say set is editing back to false. So when you submit the form, then we set is editing back to false, which is then going to change this into add table item. So let's save that and let's see. It doesn't change. Let's test it out. So editing item and add a table item. There we go. So looking fantastic. Now the next that I do want to do in this video is I want to calculate the total amount of items in my amount column. So let me add maybe 2 more items. So item 2, quantity 100, price 450. Let's say item 3, let's say quantity 50, price 500, and then we want to get the total of these 3 items, right? Let's check this out. So we can go into our, this is our table row. Where is it? This is our column that displays the amount, right? And we want to access this column. We want to be targeting this column and then getting the numbers inside this column of amount, and then getting the sum of those numbers and then displaying it on the screen. So that would mean that we need a state value to house the totals. Did I add that? Did I add totals? I don't think I did. Okay, I don't think I did. So let me add totals here. So const total and set total is equal to use state. By default, I want it to be 0. Now you might be asking why I have this state value here, yet I placed these other ones inside here, this other one inside here. Now the reason for this is because this total is going to be shared by 2 components. Okay, so it's going to be shared by our table form, which is this right here, and then it's going to be shared by our invoice table, which is this right here. So I want to be able to pass down the data from the parent, which is the app.js, down into the children, which is the table form and the table. That's why I have it inside the parent. And in order to use this tool, then I want to go inside table form. So not yet this one, not yet this one. Actually, not, can do it inside here as well. So total, the total prop is going to be equal to the total state value, and set total prop is equal to set total function. And then let me just copy this, and then let's go into table form, which is this right here, and then just paste this in. And there we go. We can destructure this next by going below this and saying total and set total. Okay, fantastic. Now what we need to do is we need to create our function. Let me create the function right here. Actually, wait a minute, this is calculate items amount. So let me go below this and say calculate total amount of items in table. Okay, now let's do this. So let's create a variable. Let's create a variable called let's say let rows equals to document. Actually, no, I've forgotten something. Because I want to use document.query selector, then I will need to select, I want to select only this column, right? So I want to give this column a custom class name of amount, okay, so that I can only select this one. Because if I use query selector all and I try to select the elements of TD, then it's going to select all these other ones as well, which I don't want to do, right? So this is a class of amount, which is the only class of amount, I hope, right? So I can go ahead inside here and I can say document dot query selector all, and I want the class of dot amount. Okay, so this selects all the rows. So it's going to select, where is it? Why did it reset? Okay, item 1 45 250, item 2 50 500. So what it's doing is that it's going over all the rows and only selecting the column of amount in each row, right? That's what this is happening. That's what this is doing right here. And then what I want to do is I want to specify a value, so called sum. So let sum equal to 0. Okay, and then once we have this, then what I want to do is we want to loop over all the rows, get the value inside this column, and then add them, right? So let's create a for loop. Okay, so for, let's say let I equals to 0, and then I less than rows dot length, okay, and then I plus plus. That should be correct. And then let's say if rows, okay, rows in I dot length, wait a minute, no, not dot length, rows in I dot class name, should be class name. We want to get the class name, which is amount, right? So we want to get this one. So rows in I equals amount. Then we're going to say the sum, which is our variable right there, sum equals to sum plus, actually no, I don't need to do that. You can just say sum plus equals into, let's check, is not a number. So we want to make sure that the number that we get back is an actual number. So let's say rows in I dot inner HTML. What is happening? Rows in I dot inner HTML. If this is true, then what to display is 0. So what this means is that if the sum is not a number, right? If the sum is not a number, meaning if it has some strings inside or other values inside that are not numbers, then it's going to display 0. Then if the sum is a number, then we want to say pass int or int, and then let's say rows in I dot in HTML. That should be correct. That should be correct. So before we save this, then we need to say set total into the sum, which is going to populate our state value. And then let's go ahead and right below our table right here, we can add a div and an h2 that says the total. which is our state value that we have just destructured at the top. So let's save this, and I hope this works. The value is 0. Why is the value 0? Let's check our console. Why is this? Oh, wait a minute, I have a console log somewhere. Where console log? Let's remove this console log. Cannot update app. Well, oh, you know what? Oh, wait a minute, this is the sum. This is the total. See this? It actually worked. This is the total. So we can actually tell, we can actually try and see whether it shows in our actual invoice as well. Okay, it doesn't because I haven't displayed it, sorry. So this is our total, but we have an error here that I'm going to fix in a moment. So let me just tell this out first of all. Let's give this a class name of, let's say, text gray dash 800. Let's say text dash for Excel, and then let's say Kenya shillings. Oh, and by the way, I'm calculating this in Kenya shillings. You need to use a currency converter in order to check how much it would be, but I'm actually thinking about adding a currency converter in this application. Let's make this bold, so font bold. Okay, and then let's make this, let's say, to local string. There we go. So that if the number is a huge number like this, then it's separated by commas or by full stops, depending on the region that you come from. Now you might be asking why we can't do this here. It's because if we do this here, it introduces a comma or a full stop, which means that our function to calculate the total amount is not going to work. Remember, because we are checking whether this is a number or not. Okay, so let's fix the error. By the way, we had an error. We had an error inside here. In the last video, we had a similar error, and you remember we fixed it by placing this inside a use effect. So it works the same way for this. So I'm just going to cut this out, and I'm going to place it inside a use effect. And yes, you can have multiple use effects in your code. Just paste this in, and then the dependency for this is going to be set total, if I'm not wrong. So let's save this, and hopefully this works. We should not have an error, so let's remove this. Let's reload, sorry, not remove. Let's add an item. So item 1, let's say quantity 45, price 500. This is not correct. This should update. Wait, let's test it. Let's test it out. Item 2, quantity 50, price 450. What is happening? What is... Wait, you know what? It's because of this. It's because of this array. Okay, so what's happening, I think what's happening is that when we add an array here, it means that this is only going to run when the dependencies inside here change. So if the dependencies don't change, then this is not going to run. So I think in this case we can remove our array, our dependency array, and it should work. I hope that removed it. So let's try and add item 3, quantity 30, price 300. Okay, there we go. So now it's updating automatically. And then what we need to do now is just copy this div, and let's go inside our table component, and right on the bottom of this table we can display this, and then let's destructure our total here. We need to destructure the total. Let's preview, and there we go. Would you look at that? Isn't that amazing? It is. It is. But actually what I did want to do is I wanted this to be a flex, and then items and then justify, and that should be it. There we go. So that it goes to the right instead of the left. And then do the same thing for here. So copy these class names and then paste them inside here. Et voila. And that is our invoice. Probably I'm going to limit this so that it doesn't go all the way to the end. And then notice how we only added our edit and delete buttons in this table, but we didn't add them inside this table, and that is actually what I wanted to do. That is the functionality that I want. Now in the next video, what I'm going to do is we're going to create our model so that the send button actually pops up a model here. And then I haven't still got a good solution for our download button. I haven't still got a good solution. The solutions that I've tried are not working all that well. Another thing that I did want to do is I wanted to add a currency converter so that you can convert into multiple currencies. So let me just write this down. So we need to create our model, a currency converter, and then there's something called PDF layer. I'm going to check it out. I've forgotten what it is, but I do know about it. You know what, we can just Google it. Yeah, it's an API. Okay, it's an API. Okay, I'm going to check that out, and then I'm going to check out whether we can build our currency converter inside, and then we're going to add our model, and then let me check out what is it that is actually remaining in this app. I don't know whether there's actually anything that major that is remaining. Probably just to style this out a bit, and probably to space all these items out. And let me go ahead and do that inside here. So this is client details. Let me say margin top of 10. Push it downwards. Okay. Let's go inside this H2. Let's say font bold. Font dash bold. Let's say text dash 2XL. And then Nairobi, Kenya. Let's say right here, let's say margin bottom 3. Too much. Let's say 1. How much is 1? 1 is fine. And then let's go inside our main details. Inside our H2, let's say margin bottom 1 as well. Push away from this address. And then inside this invoice, I think it was called dates, right? Inside here, let's say this is margin Y of 5. So let's say margin top. Let me say margin Y of 10. How huge is that? Let's say margin top 10 and margin bottom of 20. Too big. Margin bottom 14. Okay. And then once we have this, and then we have our notes paid to the okay. I think that is going to be, once we add our download and send functionality, then that should be enough to deploy this application, right? Yes, so I think that is going to be it for this video. And thank you guys for watching, and please subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.